You're listening to Just 3 Clicks, and this is episode number 11. I'm Joey, and I'm sat here again with my business partner, David.
Good afternoon, everybody, or morning, or evening. I kind of forget that we're, it's afternoon here, but someone could listen to this at like 2 a.m. So whatever time of day it is, hope it's a good one.
Global with time and location. All right, so today on the agenda, we're basically going to be talking about how we as a business have transformed from being a lifestyle business to a bona fide enterprise. That's what the copy says, bona fide.
What does bona fide mean?
Let's Google that really quickly. One sec. Bona fide means...
Spell it properly.
B-O-N-A fide. It's 2 words, actually, bona fide. It's not even... Bona fide means in good faith. When applied to business deals and the like, it stresses the absence of fraud and deception. I don't think that relates to the... Oh, okay, the other definition is genuine or real. There you go.
Okay.
We're a real enterprise now.
There we go.
So, yeah, I don't know. It was the first kind of opening point here is kind of like, are we actually still a startup, or have we kind of moved past that point? And then there's a little quote here from somebody called Paul Graham. He's the founder of Y Combinator Accelerator. And he says a company can be 5 years old and still be a startup, which is quite interesting, really.
I think that's why, when we started out, you call yourself a startup, and then people call it the startup scene, or that's kind of... It's not just about starting a business. I guess it's a group of companies, isn't it? People who can grow fast, people who've got that potential. And I think sometimes it takes 5 years to realize potential, maybe even 7, 8 years. So, yeah, I guess I still call us a startup. I still say that's what we are. Even though we're 5 years in, some people would say scale up, but, I think... We have a quote like, we're only just getting started. So I think our mindset is always, we are just starting out. And I think that enables us to remain agile. And I think maybe that's probably where we see ourselves, but maybe we're not on current kind of revenue projections. And
it's like, how do you quantify if it's a startup anyway? Like, what's the tipping point between?
I think it's very subjective. I think he says on that, is it after 10 years, maybe you're not?
Yeah, it says, it does say that, yeah.
5 years in, I think we're probably on the cusp of not being.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like we've progressed enough to not be like a startup. Like, I know other startups who, in comparison to where we are, it's just like a completely different world. Yeah.
But it's one of those. I don't tend to think about it so much. No. I don't tend to put us in that bracket and say that's what we are all the time. We're just a business at the end of the day. I think one thing we did, which is a bit different, we never got involved in, chasing investment and going the VC route. We just kind of started a business. And I think I always say to people, like, I got into business to make money, to turn a profit and improve my financial position, improve my life and my family's life. And I think I always find it weird that people kind of, you'd meet someone at an event and they would say, so you're taking a salary? And I was like,
I remember that. Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, why would I not take a salary? And I think because we came from having businesses, we invested our own money into our current business. I just think maybe we've got a bit of a different kind of outlook on what business is. And we've never been chasing the next round of investment. We've been chasing the next year of growth and the next, improving our KPIs, improving our metrics. And that's probably been the last 2 years. Prior to that, we were just, making quite good money and enjoying our lives, really. It was only probably 2 or 3 years in where we probably thought, do you know what, this could be something that isn't just going to be worth, you know, a few million. This could be worth a few 100 million. And I think that's when it kind of we changed our minds and we started to. I think we matured as people, as a managing team. I think we, you know, matured as with the business really.
Yeah, I think I know it's a bit of a silly reference to make, but if you've ever watched like Silicon Valley, the series on HBO, it's hilarious. If anybody's not watched it, it's fucking really funny because it's really real. That's why it's really funny, because it's like I can relate with so much of the stuff those guys go through in that show. But the one thing that I think that show sets the tone for is what the actual startup culture is like. And like if you go into like a Silicon Valley, the startup culture is like you've got a group of people who have this great idea, and the whole real driver there is pretty much what you said there, is like, we need to get investment and we need to build a product where that's going to be interesting for someone to come and drop some cash for us. And I think the reason I always find it a bit hard to see how we had the traditional startup thing, because we never done a free trial. We didn't necessarily try and get somebody to buy into the product. We basically justified the product and the market by proving that it's going to sell on day one, basically. And I think I was on a podcast the other day talking about this, actually, that, you know, it was a podcast about startups and investment and that kind of thing. And the host on the show he didn't know how we had actually started. So when I was explaining it, he was just kind of like, what? Like, the affiliate model's like, he never knew what the affiliate model even is. So it was like, it's just interesting sometimes when you talk to people and you talk about how we've done it. It's completely like, it boggles my mind sometimes, because it's such a great way to do it, like if you have an opportunity to do it that way. So yeah, that was quite eye-opening really, and I think, you know, we've done a good job of kind of skipping that step a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's benefits to not doing. I think connections and people on your side, people opening doors, I think that's all great, but then you look at the equity you have and giving that up, and you know, the pressure you can be put under. I mean, when you're a young business, you need to have that freedom to make mistakes. You know, we made, you know, a lot of mistakes, but you know, we managed to kind of get around them, and you know, we managed to keep the business growing, keep it stable. And I think when you're playing with your own money, you make decisions a bit differently, and you essentially train yourself to look after it and invest it properly. And you know, you mitigate a risk when you're spending too much and you're not getting a return. And I think if you go from zero to having millions in the bank and you've never had that kind of cash before, I just don't think. I think it should be an adjustment to having that. I think people who just get it and think they've made it because they've got investment, that isn't making it. That is.
No, that's not the same thing, is it?
It's a start. And I think where we are as a business, we've, you know, our revenue this year is up, 280%. Now, let's say we're on track for, I think, say 10 million in revenue. Then if you'd have said to me 5 years ago, 10 million in revenue, I don't think I'd have been able to potentially handle that, because we'd have been making that much profit that, you know, the lifestyle we were living would have just improved. You know, we wouldn't necessarily have been looking at scaling a company. It was all, you know, we had a different mindset. Whereas today, I'm looking at 10 million and saying, how are we going to get to 20? I look at the cash in the bank and I don't think, hey, let's go and buy, you know, a Lamborghini each. I think, how are we going to invest that to get a return? And how are we going to, you know, get to that 20 million in revenue and, you know, double where we're at right now? And I think that's probably the difference in our mindsets. And I don't think I would have got there without going through the last 5 years. If someone would have just dropped, you know, 10 million in the bank, it's a very different thing than earning it and making it. And
yeah. I think there's a point here about, you know, when did we decide to pivot? And it wasn't a decision. It was, you know, a gradual learning,
like
I think.
An evolution, really.
Yeah, it's like it just happened, you know. Like, I think we all personally went through some really interesting things. Like, I went through a phase of like, I wanted all the really cool stuff, Like, and you know, I think that's fine. I think everybody needs to go through that experience of, you know, rewarding yourself for your work. And
You have to. Like, I'm still in that phase, and I think I always will be. But you just temper it with what you can afford and what you can do at the time. Like, I drive, you know, quite a nice car, and you know, I don't need to, but I want to, and I want to buy another car soon. And you know, that's kind of how I reward myself. And I think that comes from being a kid and saying, when I'm successful, I want this and I want that and I want that. It's kind of like going through all that to then say, you know what, I've made it. And in my mind, I know that that's complete bullshit, but I still want to do it. And that's kind of what I do. And then I spend the money on experiences and things, and that's what I enjoy doing. And I think you've got to reward yourself. You have to.
I think what happens is like you get to a point. Like, I remember when I was just really, I just wanted to buy nice shit all the time, basically. But now it's like, you know, it's a lot more tapered and controlled in a way where it's like, you know, I won't go mental just buying loads of shit. It's like, I'll get a nice thing. Okay, fine, the Xbox and the PS5, they're on pre-order right now. And I'm basically going to buy both. But do I really need both? Not really. But that's my idea of like, you know, well, I can. So I may as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's cool. Like, but I think if this was like 5 years ago, it would probably be, I don't know.
You probably have like one for every room in a house.
Yeah, like there was a
TV.
time where I had 3 Xboxes in my house because I wanted one in, you know, in my lounge, in the bedroom, in the game room. It was a game room. Like, you know what I mean? It was like excessive, basically. And I think it's an adjustment. Like, and I don't regret any of it. I think it was great. I think it was a good time. And
I think this is one thing you won't hear people talking about so much. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just like, and I never really kind of spoke to people who kind of talk this way about what it's like running a business, and when that business succeeds, what happens to you personally. We all talk about, you know, how, yeah, I grew a business and I made all this money, but, you know, what happens when you start making money? Because, you know, it's people that run a business. It's not, you know, the business isn't just a thing on its own.
Yeah, there is emotion attached to it, and the emotion is the people that are there.
Anyone listening to this right now, imagine someone came and just dropped, you know, imagine you were used to making, say, $50,000 a year, and then all of a sudden your income went to $350,000. Like, do you think, what would you do?
Yeah.
Would everything remain the same? Would you live in the same house? Would you go on the same vacations? Would you buy, you know, would you shop the same? I guarantee initially most of you wouldn't do. You would go and buy the car you've always wanted. You would go on the vacations you always wanted more often. You'd upgrade your living accommodation.
100%.
You know, then what happens is you do all that and you kind of go a bit crazy, and then all of a sudden you go back to, you know, well, I've now got a car, I've got a house, I've bought all the things I wanted to buy, the vacations I'm taking, that's normal now. And then you kind of adjust to it, and it's like, well, now I need to do more.
It's called it's the hedonistic ladder, is I believe what my therapist referred to it as. It's like literally the feeling of when you buy a new phone. It's that feeling, just on a very big scale. Yeah,
I wrote something about this recently, about kind of why chasing happiness isn't really possible, because once you catch it, it kind of
you have dissipates. To be sad. Like you have to be upset sometimes. Otherwise we lose sight of the things that matter, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So and I think we've all kind of learnt that a little bit.
So what was the point we were on? Because I think we just digressed.
Well, the point is basically like, did we pivot? You know, and it's like, no, I don't think it was like, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, it wasn't like that. It was just, I think you just kind of, the feeling, it's just like any other emotion. It's just like a feeling that you have. And we had that on a personal level. And I think because we had it on a personal level, it just kind of translated into how we view the business as well.
Yeah, I think.
Put it this way, like, do you remember the days when we would take out bonuses? Like, we used to, I mean, it's fine to talk about, like, you know, sometimes in the early days when we'd have a really great month, they'd be like, right, let's pay out an extra 5K each, or let's pay out an extra 10 grand each so we can go and do something nice with our family or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't really do that anymore. Like, we don't, there's a case of we don't need to, I suppose, but there's also a case of like, well, we want to kind of look at the business as a whole kind of thing, and we're okay with with what we have, and we want to look at the bigger picture now, and it's different, like, and that's required. We had to mature to be able to think that way.
Yeah, I think as well, like, when we started this, we were 27, 28.
Yeah,
it's not old, really.
No.
So yeah, I think it's just, as we've matured, I think
we're not old now either. Just to clarify, like, I still think we're all right. Still young.
I think we're 33, so I'm
32.
Yeah, but that feels old to me now. Like, I think it's nearly the end. But yeah, I think it was just a case of I think as we've grown as individuals, the business has grown as well, and I think sometimes the business grows more than you do, and then you kind of have to catch up with the business, and sometimes you grow more than the business does, and the business then kind of, you drag the business forward. I think you've always got to constantly evolve as a person to keep up with the growth of your business, and that might mean educating yourself. It might mean looking after your mental health. It might mean learning to take your foot off the gas a bit and take some time out. Being okay with that. And I think this is part of growing as an entrepreneur.
A part of what comes with that as well is, like, because it talks about just ownership here and passing the ownership on, and I think there's an element of the ego journey where when you start out you think you can do everything, like, I can do every single job, I do it the best, and that's it, kind of thing. And it's such a restrictive way of growing the business. You can't move forward like that. So we've had to do a lot of, like, being able to delegate. And I know people say this, you should do this from day one, but it's not that easy sometimes. It's like certain skill sets that we have in the business, we feel that we're that good at it that we need to do it. It's not even an ego thing sometimes. Sometimes it's more a case of fear in that, if I don't do it, is it going to get done as good?
Frustration as well when you see, we've had people in the past who've tried to do things, and we know that in that moment we can do it faster and better, so we just tend to, I think in the past we've just done it, whereas now it's more of a case of, well, let's hire people who are better at this and just give them the time and the support to
Yeah, it's like the video stuff. Like, I would love to sit in this room and I'd love to set the cameras up the way that I feel I want to set it up. I'd love to do the lighting, get it all looking the way I think it should be. But it's like 2 hours out of 2 hours out of my day that basically is just gone, and I could have done something else. So, it's just one of those things where you got to make a decision. It's like, I've got to let somebody else do this, and also accepting that there might be other people that are actually better at it. And normally there actually are people that are better. It's just a case of really spending the time to find them, I suppose.
I think the problem is as well, when you could find someone who's better, but it's then giving them the time, giving them the insight from you, offloading what's in your brain, and like really putting time into that person, because at the end of the day we're going to drive the business in the way we want to drive it, and things need to be done how we want it to be done, I guess. You want to give people that creative license, but it's still got to fit in with what we're trying to achieve. So I think it's giving people time, and that's what I'm trying to do this year. Is when we bring people into the business, it's trying to give them the freedom to do things their own way and be happy in the role, but then also give them my time and let them know that I'm always available, so that if they've got a question, if they want to sit on a call that we're doing, so they can listen to how I would deal with objections or how I would talk to an investor, they can all see that, and then that's how you can kind of pass on our way of doing things and our knowledge. And I think you're probably the same with content and the video stuff, and I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. Is I think in the past we've brought people in who were not the right fit, and we've tried to give them time, been burned, and I think we probably had about 6 to 8 months of like fear of bringing in more people. And then as we've grown over the last sort of 18 months, I think we've probably got to a stage where we've carried that much on our backs that we've all just kind of broken and gone like, fuck it, let's just bring people in, and
Yeah,
we're kind of now like really delegating quite quickly. And I think every time we make a new hire, it's not because we want to, it's because like there's a need for it.
Yeah, like we're hitting a cap. I mean, just literally an hour before this podcast, I had a chat with our content team, and it's like we're basically blocked because our designer is absolutely slammed. So it's like, right, well, let's get a designer, basically. And I know if we had said let's get a designer like 2 years ago, it would have been like this massive fucking like, oh shit, well how is it going to work, and how's one designer going to work with the other, and all of this. And it's like, shit just works itself out sometimes. Like I think you just got to let people kind of fix the problem sometimes. Like Nindy's again doing a great job like with the SEO stuff, and it's like we really want to press SEO in the business, but myself, David, Jamie don't have the time necessarily to sit there figuring it all out. So we've given him the reins to go and do it, and he's doing it. He's finding the bottlenecks and trying to fucking unlock them, basically. So that's been a big thing, I think, for me personally as well. Like being able to see other people just come in and start doing things, that's been a really big thing to help shift my mindset. So going on from that is like, we're obviously going for an investment. There's a question here which is quite an interesting question, I suppose, and it's like, what impact will the investment have on the business, but not just like in a quantifiable like money thing, but more culture, innovation, and our leadership as well.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons for going for the investment is at the minute we aren't connected in like the technology world and the private equity, the VC world. We're not connected because there's nobody who sits on our board really who, is an investor who's looking to get a return. When you're a business that's backed by a VC or private equity, a portion of your board needs a return on the investment they've had in. So they will be out in the market. They will be looking to add value, to find a deal. And that's just not what we're good at. I mean, we're good at what we do. But that side of the business, I mean, we need somebody who we get on with. We need somebody we're aligned with, but somebody who wants the same thing that we do.
Yeah.
So I think one of the main reasons for us is to obviously, potentially realize a bit of the benefit of our hard work, but then also to bring a partner on board. We can then really scale this business, and then we've got someone on side to, to eventually help us exit the business. And that's one of the main reasons for going for it. And I think that there is a strategic move.
Yeah.
I think we'll become better entrepreneurs, better leaders. I think we will think differently, but then I also think there'll be somebody on our side who is, trying to find, where we can move the business to and spot opportunities in the market. And, I think eventually we'll all kind of realize what we want to realize faster, and probably get a better valuation because of the people around the table. So for me, back in the day, it would have been, let's raise 10 million because 10 million.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's kind of, well, we don't want to, it's not about selling a massive portion of the business for, just to get a bit of money in the bank. It's about what is the long-term vision behind it.
Yeah. No, I'd pretty much echo that. I think, in terms of why the investment, that is going to be the biggest thing, is just like the strategic kind of journey that they can take us on. But in terms of like culture, I think it's going to improve. I think the investment's going to enable us to get more people, for starters. So culture is essentially derived from the people that are in the business and the community that the business builds. And we've got a lot more people in it now, and I think after investment, that's obviously going to grow. And I think that's going to start to create more teams, more people, and hopefully a little bit more, a bit more of a vibe in the office. I think that's going to be cool. I think it's going to give people in the office a lot more of a buzz and a bit of confidence as well. Because, look, I mean, me, you, and Jamie can sit here all day and say, guys, we're nailing it. Our business is great. But when our team can actually see that we've got a massive investment on board and we've got people that really believe and they've got confidence in the company, I think that gives people a bit more confidence as well in that,
Yeah.
you know, we've got a career here. This isn't just like a, you know, like a little business. It's like a big thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to allow people to feel a little bit more like, okay, I really want to kind of drive here and build my career here. It will help them to see more opportunities. And I think that's going to drive the culture. And yeah, in terms of leadership, it's just, I think we just evolve over time. Like, I don't think any of us are managers or anything like that, but I think we are continuing to kind of grow as people, and that's essentially helping us become better leaders. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much that. What tips do we have for entrepreneurs trying to scale their business and move from being a startup to something more established? Think about talent, the people you get in, and finding the right kind of investors.
I think hire doers, not thinkers. In the early days, we made the mistake of hiring too many thinkers, people who, you know, had been in big businesses and they were all about theory and this is what we did in my old job. And when it came to actually rolling the sleeves up and getting the hands dirty, they just weren't really that good. They didn't really do it. And I think if you want to go from kind of that, you know, startup to scale up, I guess, you need people who are going to be, you know, bought in fully, get their hands dirty. You know, kind of it's going to be a future management team, but, you know, maybe at the minute they're not in that management capacity because there's no one to manage. You know, maybe it's just someone who's very good at what they do, but isn't, you know, experienced in managing a team of people, and you bring them on and you grow with them. And I think we've done that in the past. I think we've just done it again really recently. You know, we've brought people in who've got that management experience, but who are still, you know, it's not like they've been doing it for 20 years, just managing people. They've been, you know, getting hands dirty and managing. And I think that kind of helps you to get more things done. It stops bureaucracy because you get a lot of them. I mean, if someone wants you in a 3-hour meeting, just walk out after half an hour. I mean, you know, we got into the business of meetings, and it was like 3-hour meetings, 4-hour meetings.
Yeah.
And it was just absolutely, I mean, in the end, right? So what happened was the guys who were supposed to be making the money in the business had 3-hour meetings, and the three of us were outside making the money. And that's kind of what happened. It became a case of, you know, we were the only ones driving revenue into the business, even though we had a VP of sales, we had a CMO, we had all these people who were meant to be marketing and selling, but they just couldn't do it. And it's probably because they spent 50% of the time in meetings talking about how they were going to do it and never actually did it.
Yeah, I think adding to that, like, I think the biggest issue that those people had was, number one, they were coming from organizations a lot bigger than ours. So I think if you're going to go and bring people into your company, it's so important to find people that understand you're a startup or that you are a business that doesn't have all those processes. Because, I mean, as an example, the sales director we brought in came from IBM, very, very big company. So the process, you can imagine the processes and all the, you know, functionality of that business was massive.
He was like, so what CRM do we use? And we were like, we don't have a CRM.
Yeah.
We ended up spending about 25 grand on Salesforce, and you know, I mean, Salesforce is great, yeah, but...
Well, it's just a lack of a better judgment. Like, we didn't have the experience. We were leaning on him and said, what do we need to make this sales operation work? And he said, well, you need Salesforce. So we just bought it, basically.
Yeah.
And literally, the guy didn't make a sale. He was here for 6 months, I think. 7 months, maybe.
9.
9 months, and he didn't make a single sale.
Yeah. I remember as well being in a board meeting, and he was presenting, and we were like, what's the pipeline? And it was 0. The pipeline was 0, and it was like, how many sales have we done this month? And it was 0. So we're paying this guy quite a big salary.
What was this? What were we paying?
I think he was like 75, 80,
Yeah.
85. I think I've blocked it all from my memory, if I'm honest. But yeah, we were paying these guys, you know, almost 6-figure salaries, and yeah, we just got meeting after meeting.
Yeah. You know, it was an error on our part. It's a lack of like understanding. We just thought like if we get somebody from an experienced business, they'll be able to do it in our business, and it didn't work like that. So
No.
we needed to basically get people who understood our culture in the sense that it's a new, fresh company, and they need to build those processes. And having a doer, like David said, is like, it's just key. Like a lot of the time when you bring in managers, and this is the thing, if you go and hire for a manager, like, and you get managers, they don't want to necessarily do the nitty gritty stuff.
And when you say to them, are you prepared to get your hands dirty? They will always say yes.
Yeah.
And they'll say, I've been wanting to do this for years. I've got bored of managing people.
Yeah.
And I just want to do my own thing. And then what they'll say is, and obviously, coming in to a company like this, it'd be great to have some skin in the game and some equity. And then they'll want that writing into the contract. So if anyone says, right, I want some equity and I want to get my hands dirty, but I've not done it for 20 years, get some references. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Because what they want, right, is the retirement package.
Yeah.
But they're not prepared to actually go back to essentially start the career and be that doer. They'll just want to bring in a lot of people. And I can't generalize here. I'm sure there's people out there who, do genuinely want to do this, but as you can see, we're pretty scarred by what happened.
It happened a number of times.
Oh yeah, it's happened with multiple people. And now whenever somebody says to me, about equity, I just say, look, well, there will always be a discussion if you come in and perform. I said, if you come in and you make yourself invaluable to the business, 100%, not 100% equity. I mean, there will be a conversation to be had, but I would never.
You don't want to put it in contracts and stuff like that.
No, I would never have that on day one. It's all about coming in and someone performing and showing they deserve it. So that's kind of the hiring thing. Bringing people in.
Get nice big probation periods as well. Nice and big. Like you don't want to be going 1 month, 2 months. Like I think we used to do 3 months. Was it?
Yeah, we moved it to 6.
Moved it to 6 because essentially like 3 months isn't quite enough time to just know if someone's going to fit. But I think if you get up to 6 months and you got a good feeling, then it's probably going to be all right. But we got burnt on the 3 month thing quite badly by the sales director actually. Like so, it's just lessons like that get learned on the way, and it's we can't give you the fucking exact things that are going to go wrong here. Like there's so many things that have gone wrong.
Yeah, and the thing is, people may listen to this and think, well, I wouldn't have made that mistake. But I mean, this is our is our business and our experience. We aren't pretending to be the all-seeing and all-knowing people of business. We're not. We're just human beings who make mistakes, and you may be further down the road than we are, and you may have made these mistakes 20 years ago, and you may have made them 10 years ago. You maybe you've not made them yet, and maybe you never will do. But I think this is our journey, and I think sometimes it's just I look back at the mistakes we made and think they were quite elementary.
Yeah,
it's a bit embarrassing sometimes, but it's just the benefit of hindsight.
Like it's funny you say that because I don't know why. Like yesterday when I was at home, I was just thinking like about me and Jamie interviewing that sales director. And I don't know why I had it in my head, but I remember when me and Jamie came out of that interview, we were like, he's the guy. He's definitely the guy.
I remember you telling me, this is the guy.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
And it was like, we were so confident. It was like, we don't even need to see anybody else. Like, that's the guy. And it was just such a bad idea. Such a bad idea. And in fact, there was another guy, this COO type, the operations guy who brought in. And I remember it was me and you who sat with him. On the first day, I think he came in when we had actually hired him, and it was the first day, and he was like, so, guys, like, we could be selling the business for like $15 million or whatever. It's like a couple of million each. And I was like, this guy's not on the same wavelength. And I think, and the reason I'm saying this, just to clarify, like, is like, for us, selling the company for 15 million was something we wanted to do back in fucking 2015. Like, like your ambitions grow. And I think when you're bringing people into the business, you need to get people who are actually on, like, who have the same aspirations and goals as what you do. Like, they need to understand where you're trying to, what trajectory you're trying to get to. And that's just really important, like really, really important.
we've actually just hired 2 more salespeople recently, and we interviewed a bunch of people. And one of the guys, right, was a carbon copy of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, honestly, like he was like, so tell me something about yourself, Joey. And then it was really interesting, Joey. How you would say that? How that guy spoke.
Yeah.
And we're on the call, and I was like, no, we cannot hire this guy. Like this would be terrible. And he was like quite. He was trying to fight for control of the conversation, and I just let him take it because I was like, well,
yeah,
this isn't really. I can see so many parallels between you and the guy we hired. It's not going to work. I just knew within minutes, and that is experience.
That's experience, isn't it? It's just you have to go through the shit to know that stuff, and it's invaluable, really. Like it is invaluable because you know what not to look for. So yeah, that's probably. I mean, tips for entrepreneurs. Like God, we could do it for days, but like we'll stop at that one there because it will go on for a while. So. Relinquishing control over certain aspects of the business, and how do we feel about it? What happens when your business, which was founded and nurtured by us, is accountable to investors and shareholders? How do we feel about that?
Well, it's a tough one, really. When I started my business at 21, the reason I did it is because I wanted to pretty much say fuck you to responsibility. I didn't want authority. I didn't want someone telling me what to do. I wanted to do things my way.
Yeah.
I wanted to take time off when I wanted to take it off. I wanted to not work if I didn't want to. And that was, I think probably at 21 years old, that's probably what a lot of people that age think. And then over the years, that has diminished quite a bit. And I think as I've matured, I actually quite welcome accountability in certain areas of my life. I think being accountable to something keeps you kind of stable. It keeps you on point. And I think we've all got, I can't speak for everybody, but me personally, I've got to a stage now where I've accepted that, bringing people into the business is going to make me accountable to somebody else. And I'm quite looking forward to it. I'm quite excited to jump into that kind of next realm of the business, but also for me personally, seeing how I can improve my performance. Like, how is it going to impact me? Someone's telling me you've got to hit these numbers, you've got to do these things. Well, I don't like to fail, so I think it's going to be quite good.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much the same. I think, no one's going to like the feeling of giving a part of your thing away. Like, no one's going to like it. But you just have to look at the upsides, like the people that are coming into the business they've got something we don't have, which is number one, excess capital and connections, experience of doing something that we haven't done.
Well, they've seen hundreds of technology businesses do what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
In the saying is, you've got to crack an egg to make an omelette, isn't it? So that's kind of what we are at the minute. Is I think we've got all these eggs, but to make it into something better, we've got to, crack them all. So I think as a business right now, I think as well, when you start a business and you're just looking for investment pre-revenue, I just can't. I guess the reason so many people fail is because they don't go through all these things. I'm not saying we're going to succeed and be, the next unicorn. Like, no one can guarantee that. We can put it on paper and say, yes, we're going to be $1 billion company. And deep down, I believe we could get there. But I think a lot of people skip a lot of the lessons that they would learn if they just tried to grow a business. And I think that's one thing that I'm quite happy about, is that we've been through things on our own. We've been through things off our own, back our own investment. We've failed. We've felt the pain of, going from, say, a few $100,000 in the bank to, having 1 to 2 months of payroll in the bank, and coming back from that. And all those experiences just, I don't know, they just make you a better decision maker.
Yeah. Like, you got to look at, like, long term here. You're 33, I'm 32. Jamie's a little bit older than us, like 46, I think. And, like, basically, like, we've got our entire career ahead of us yet. Like, this is the first thing, really, that we've done on a serious level. Like the investment side, it's the first time we're going to do that, and it's going to be a great learning experience. And on a final thing here, there's a point here about, and it kind of leads from what I'm saying, and it says, do you ever imagine it becoming a public company? Now, fucking hell, like if you can't handle having some responsibility with an investor, like how are you ever going to get to a point where you can go and become a public company? And I'm not saying this is the company that's going to go public, but who knows? Like maybe one day it's a different company that we're involved with and it does go public. We have to have the experience of knowing how to handle being accountable to people. You're not just accountable to a couple of people in a room. It's a completely different animal.
Thousands of people.
Yeah. So you need to establish those skills, and I think this is just a great step for us to learn that stuff and see how we evolve from there, really. So last question, I guess, and we'll kind of wrap up on this is, it's a good question, really, and like, what do we not want happening to the company post investment?
I don't want us to become weighed down by bureaucracy. I don't want to become, an organization that doesn't move fast and isn't agile.
That's the word that was in my head.
Yeah, I think that's what I know elements of the business, are going to need to be. And I always kind of liken this to like boats. So when you start a business, you're like a speedboat, even like a jet ski, potentially, because you don't have any protection.
Yeah.
And I think you can move really fast, you can be very agile, but, it's quite dangerous. And then you get to a stage where you're maybe a speedboat and you've got a bit more stability and you can still move really fast, but then you go into maybe a yacht and, you've got all these nice things and things are bigger, but you can't move as fast.
Yeah.
And then the bigger you get, it become like a ferry, oil tanker, where, it's all really stable and very safe, but when you make a decision, it takes like 3 months to move, or it takes, a year to pivot and turn around because you made a bad call. And I think as you grow as a business, you kind of have to become that oil tanker. I think that's just, you kind of have to. But what I'm saying is, like, have elements of the business which are jet skis and speedboats. So, create a department that's all about innovation. Create another department which is about, developing a new product, or a small demand gen department which is all about finding new ways to drive people into the business, and have these teams which are the agile parts of the business that report back into, the big part of the business. And I think, I've noticed it. We don't move as fast as we used to.
Yeah.
There's more process, and there's more things we have to, you've got to check things with the board, and I get all that, and I know we've got to become that business, but we've just hired a head of R&D. His job is literally just to make cool shit and innovate, and if we've got a potential deal that could happen, but we need XYZ technology, he's the one who's going to rapidly prototype that and make that happen. So what would normally happen is, we need to make this, and then you would go back to product, and product would say, we can't make it, we don't have the bandwidth, and then engineering would say, it's going to take till January, and then the deal's gone because we can't do it.
Yeah.
Whereas what I want is, hey, can we make this? Well, we could do, but it's going to take 2 weeks, and I'm already working on this. Well, this is going to make more money, it's going to make more sense, so do this instead. And having that agility in the business for me is key. And I think as we grow, I always want to maintain that. And I think, if we ever got to a stage where we couldn't maintain it, that'd be when I wouldn't enjoy coming to work.
Yeah, I think that's literally the biggest thing for me is, like, I don't want to ever feel like I don't want to come to work. Like, I always want to be motivated by what we're doing. And the only way that I genuinely ever feel fulfilled and motivated is that we're making something. Like, I always want to keep innovating and being able to create new stuff or evolving what we've got in some way. And as soon as we lose agility, that's why I said that's literally what was in my head. And it's like, I don't want to be in a situation where it takes us 6 weeks to sign off on a fucking new feature. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to go make stuff and be reactive in a way where it's like, right, let's go make a video about this, and let's go create a blog post about this, and this cool new stuff that we're creating. And I think we need that. And I guess the intimacy of the business, I think when you have too many people, like, too many opinions is bad in a business for me, because it's like, you need to have you need to have your key folks who are there that can kind of direct that narrative of what the business is going to do. And hopefully it doesn't hamper that. And I know a lot of the investors we've spoken to have pretty much said, we're like backseat investors. And I know, like Ian was saying, like most of them say that anyway. Yeah. So, I'm cautious of that. But we're only going to know by trying, I suppose.
Yeah. I think as well, when it comes to things like meetings, like I would always try and say, right, no meetings more than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If it runs on, well, book another meeting or sort it via email.
Yeah.
And as well, like filling a meeting with 10 people, it's probably not always productive. I mean,
it's not efficient having many people.
Just have 3 people, 4 people. Yeah. They can report back to the teams. I think that's how you kind of try and maintain a bit of agility. And I'm trying to think of a word to describe what we want to be, like strategically agile. Maybe I think it's about having that, the long-term vision, but sending those speedboats and jet skis out ahead to figure out what the problems are going to be and try and solve them and bring cool stuff back to like the main vessel. And I think that's what, if I look at the business as like a vehicle, that's kind of how I see it. I think we've become like this ferry that maybe not, maybe a bit smaller, so we can still move. But I think we definitely at this stage need those support vehicles going out and doing the agile stuff and being a bit more reactive. So if that all makes sense, it may just make sense in my head.
No, it makes sense. All right, cool. Well, this episode's dragged on a little bit longer than normal, but I think it was all good content. So hopefully everybody enjoyed kind of listening in. Anything you want to add to that?
There's probably 100 things, but we don't have time, so we can
all right, cool.
Save that for future episodes and keep our powder dry.
Keep the powder dry. All right, cool. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to that episode. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with episode 12 in a bit.